Well, hey, everybody, it's Michael Osinski.
And it's also Tyler Esselman.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11 is, in fact, our podcast, where we invite someone onto our podcast to make a case for what they believe is a perfect album.
So perfect that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
Is this our Season 8 premiere? Is this the first one?
It is our Season 8 premiere.
Oh, goodness.
We're kicking off the season.
Oh, it's like I haven't seen you in years. You've changed.
Might you say you haven't seen me since last year?
Since last year? Oh, stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We're super excited to have you for our 8th season, during which we will hit 100 episodes. This isn't our 100th episode, but we're getting pretty darn close. So thanks for sticking with us and learning about all the people that we've so generously had on here. But we're very excited about today's guest. Today's guest had one of my favorite albums of 2024. Michael, who are we talking to?
We are talking to Mike Maple. Mike Maple is the primary songwriter and producer of the band Liquid Mike from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He is a cat lover, record junkie, an extra-large Green Bay Packers fan, and he had a hell of a year in 2024. Mike Maple, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
We're very excited to have this strong Midwestern representation between you and I. I feel like it's something I sense a strong Midwestern energy just from you through your music. So thanks for bringing it.
By no choice of my own. But
yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from St. Louis originally.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. A lot of Wisconsin on the podcast last season too. So
that's all me. For sure.
Everywhere, baby. Yeah. Well, we're really excited. We're really stoked on your album, and you've been doing lots of great shows that I haven't been able to see you live yet. But I'm looking forward to the chance. I'm actually moving back to St. Louis very shortly, so I will hopefully be more in the vicinity and able to catch a show. But we invited you on today because we thought he's going to probably bring an album that is a little bit different than some of the other albums we've talked about so far in our nearly 100 episodes. So, Mike, would you tell our listeners what album hath thou brought before the This One Goes to 11 tribunal today?
Yeah, this is AC/DC's 1978 Powerage.
Powerage. Yeah, Powerage. I had not listened to this one before you nominated it.
I don't even think many AC/DC fans have listened to it, to be totally honest. It's kind of the dark horse record.
That's what they say. That's what they say. And then right after this was Highway to Hell, so everything just kind of blasted off after.
Yeah. This is like a big transition, like pre-transition record for the band.
Hell yeah.
If you still are craving more information about this band and this album, we have a little segment, and we've kept it. We're still going strong, 8 seasons long. What do we call that segment, Tyler?
We call it The Beginner's Guide to AC/DC's Powerage in 60 Seconds.
And who's doing it this week?
It's me. I'm going to do it. So, Mike, this is your chance to assess my job. You're going to be building your case for why this album is a quote-unquote perfect album throughout our conversation. But I'm going to do my best to summarize this band and this particular album's context in 60 seconds. So feel free to grade me in whatever terms you see fit. All right?
I can't wait.
Awesome.
All right. I got 60 seconds on the clock, Tyler. Are you ready?
I believe so.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Here you go.
For those about to rock, it would behoove you to remember your favorite rock band's favorite rock band, AC/DC. Formed in Sydney, Australia in November 1973 by brothers Malcolm and Angus Young, AC/DC came up in the third wave of Australian rock and played a major role in defining the high-energy, heavy-hitting hard rock or pub rock sound, which was taking root at the time. Their lineup has certainly fluctuated over the years, but those early years saw them notably join forces with vocalist Bon Scott, and their debut, High Voltage, was released in 1975 in Oz and New Zealand only, and worldwide the following year. After making their first live appearances in America and being unceremoniously kicked off an opening slot for Black Sabbath, the band's 5th studio album, Powerage, was released in May 1978. It sold slowly at first, but did eventually reach platinum status and remains a low-key hidden gem in their band's discography. Figures no less than Keith Richards and Eddie Van Halen have cited it as their favorite of the band's output. One for the real heads indeed. Their next album, Highway to Hell, would be the last with Bon Scott before his tragic passing, but the Youngs have kept the wattage high and all of us shaking in their knees to this very damn day.
All right, first one of the season. Rip off the Band-Aid, Tyler. All right, Mike, how do you do?
Pretty good salvo. Yeah,
Thank
solid.
You. Nice.
I don't know how much better you could do in 60 seconds.
That is the challenge.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent. Thanks. So I'm going to say Pretty Good Salvo. Pretty Good Salvo is a great way to start the season, considering I find this challenging every single time. But so that's a little taste of AC/DC for our listeners. And this was a fun one for me because this was very much like middle school. I've definitely went through what I called my quote unquote classic rock phase, which, I don't know if we're really considering them classic rock. Like classic rock is even more nebulous than hard rock, I think. But before we kind of get into the finer points of that, we wanted to get a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So Mike, if you would, why don't you just characterize for us a little bit of what your relationship with music is like in general?
Yeah. It's just always kind of been something that I wanted to be around, kind of be a part of. I was always like obsessed with like theme songs for cartoons growing up, and
oh, nice.
And then my mom's side of the family, they had like a jukebox business. Basically, they did like supplied all the like taverns and stuff with like pool tables and
really
dart machines and jukeboxes and stuff. Yeah, so there's always like music kind of like going on around. My parents always had it playing in the car.
Nice.
So it didn't take too long before you start to develop tastes, especially then. I'm trying to. If I should go long or short with
you can go long. I have a question. Though that I can pop right in here. What sort of stuff were they listening to? Your folks, what was their music taste like?
They both like the classic rock stuff. Stones, AC/DC for sure.
Nice.
Like my mom always liked the grunge stuff, and my dad was always more like 80s stuff, just to generalize. But that's kind of the stuff that was always around. It was like in the CD player in the car and on the radio, and there's like when I was 6th grade or something, there's just all these CDs I had at my grandma's house, and I could just kind of go home and like throw them on the computer and rip them. If I didn't like them, I just brought them back to the garage the next day. So there's a lot of trial and error, and that's what you do like when you're in 6th grade. I don't, doesn't matter what medium it is. I feel like probably the medium it's like YouTube now for kids,
right? When
they hit that age of 12 or something, they're just like trying to find what they like.
It's a quantity over quality situation.
It is. You're just trying a million things out.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Like you think if I had the same musical taste that I did when I was in 8th grade, it would be absolutely insane. I would be like a crazy person. But,
I think most people probably would be. Yeah.
Yeah, but it definitely develops from there.
Yeah, and I think Guitar Hero was coming out like right when I was like 11 or 12, and that was just like everywhere. Like all my friends had it.
Oh my God! Yeah, remember how big that was?
Yeah, and then formed a lot of like taste too. I mean, because the game was awesome, but then you start like the songs just rock too.
They had a very good collection of songs on there,
for sure.
Yeah, I feel like in some ways Guitar Hero introduced people to like classic rock anthems that maybe they wouldn't have heard unless they'd started playing, and then suddenly, like, I don't know, maybe that led to discovering more of their work or.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know many kids that were like actively listening to the radio to discover music when I was a kid. Like it was kind of like a weird point for finding stuff, but I think that was like a major one because I think it felt like probably kids were discovering it on their own at that point. When they're when they're playing a video game they like, it's not like, someone's dad telling them what to listen to or something.
Yeah, because it sounds like you and I are probably pretty close in age, and so we weren't like recording cassettes. I wasn't recording cassette stuff off the radio, which I feel like maybe Michael, were you doing that a little bit? Did you do a little bit of that?
You keep making me older and older on this podcast.
Stop that.
I think no, we've already talked about this, Tyler. I am from the BMG and Columbia House era, and that's how
right, I know that.
That's how you just got that, and MTV back when MTV was actually playing music videos. Like that was but I mean like a thing about I think in some ways MTV limited people's tastes more than like BMG or Columbia House. Because with that, you would just pick albums and be like, I don't know, I've heard of this thing. And they're saying like, who's Radiohead? And you just order an album and like, I got some real clunkers out of that. But I also made some discoveries too. But I mean, again, also, like what you were saying, Mike, the fact that like people are discovering things off YouTube or like TikTok nowadays, I feel like it's not something we've discovered through the 8 seasons now of doing this is like the album as an art form is like it's not really a thing anymore. It feels like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
The album as an art form?
Yeah.
Yeah. There seems to be like like the bands that I see on those things seem to like prioritize singles, but also I don't like, maybe they're coming at it from a totally different angle. Like the bands that are like play around like my town and kind of our scene, they all still seem to champion the album and the EP,
Really?
at least the EP for sure.
Is it because it's like an efficient way to kind of get stuff out quickly, or like you kind of get to have this sort of truncated little collection? It's like more than a song, and so you get to kind of have a musical thought contained within an EP like that. What do you think that's about?
I think you have to make at least an EP to make the band real. I think most like people that are around our thing would think that. I think they're still they really like the album.
Yeah.
But most of my friends I guess aren't like Zoomer 20-year-olds either. So
right.
Maybe I'm the out of touch one. Maybe a little bit, but I mean they're not that old. I mean they're all like mid-20s. So
right.
I think the album will always be I don't think it's going anywhere. That's for sure. But maybe like if you're chasing clout on TikTok, maybe it's like the album isn't, the first on the list of things to get done.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, I mean, I think we hope it sticks around because I mean that's how we prefer to listen to music. I mean, I don't know. I don't speak for you, Tyler, but I feel like we've been doing this long enough. I think we agree on that.
Yeah, I think we do, and I think there's something about the way like a traditional. As much as you want to kind of buck tradition, as in any creative field, I think there is something about having a few points of reference, a few valuable points of reference in terms of how you present the work that you make. And then honestly, it makes me think about how like that allows for experimentation in which, like different artists can come up with something wildly different in terms of the way that they present their own work. So I think it's important. It seems like it's important for us to still have that kind of touchstone of the album in particular as we move forward. And
beyond that, I think that like you're fans of bands, like first and foremost, and like albums are always going to be the like a time capsule or whatever for like the context for like what the band was doing at the time. And I feel like that's always going to be rewarding the listener. I think like a band like AC/DC, like where the music is like, so if you like it, it's very rewarding to like dive really deep into the like later period albums as a fan and just kind of like take it in as it is, for better or for worse. I think it's important, and I think it's totally better for like bands to like, not that AC/DC is like faded away or whatever, but I love that they're still cranking out records.
Dude, they
and
are.
Stuff. It's like it's inspiring.
It really is. Angus is like still pretty. It seems like he's pretty much exactly the same as he's ever been, which is absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
he's made it by the skin of his teeth. I love it.
Yeah, I don't think he drinks or does drugs or anything.
It's helped, I'm sure.
But I know he smokes like 2 packs a day, so you give and you take.
Our friend Nube has this phrase where you'll reference somebody's vice and she'll go, "Oh, that's my other one vice." And it's like everybody has that other one vice. They're like, "I don't do any of that stuff, but that one thing, I do that hard. I do it extra big."
Right.
I was wondering kind of, I like this idea of a time capsule as well, because I think that might be an idea that hasn't really been articulated on the pod thus far, Michael, if I'm not mistaken. But like maybe that is, you need to have a little bit of size in terms of like a single doesn't do enough to contextualize a band's like kind of historical moment.
No.
But having a few more songs at least gives you a view into who they are in that moment, which that's a really well-made point. I like that.
Well, it feels like a good time to talk about how you discovered this particular AC/DC album. Do you remember the exact moment or like time when it was like a big part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, this was like I got my first MP3 player when I was in probably 4th grade or whatever, and I just had like, I didn't even have like Windows Media Player or iTunes or anything, so I just had my uncle throw a bunch of stuff on there too. And one of the bands was AC/DC, good uncle band to have on the on the computer or whatever. And it was not, it just like went through files. It didn't have like an artist or anything, so I didn't know what songs were on anything. and Ballroom Blitz was by AC/DC on my MP3 player too. So there's like, I actually didn't know like what was and wasn't AC/DC at the time. It's like
which MP3 player did you have?
I had an RCA, like it just had a tiny rectangular screen that just said like the name of the song. It held like a gigabyte of songs on it or something.
Okay.
You weren't a Zune guy. We've had a few
Zune guy.
We've had a few Zune guys on here.
I was a heavy iPod guy eventually, but
yeah.
But AC/DC was like one of the bands that sticks, you know, as it probably would like any like 11-year-old boy, as you know. It just like speaks to you so like viscerally, because it's loud and it rocks and it's funny. They're talking about stuff that's like, you know, not safe in a way that's very appealing to a young boy.
Very much.
So I just got super into them from that point on. And then, you know, you hit like 8th grade or something and it's like, you know, you get too cool for a lot of the classic rock stuff. You start finding like newer stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I like totally like just fell back in love with it at like the end of college when I was like 22.
This is a common trajectory we see. The reintroduction to the classic rock period. Yeah.
You just want something that just rocks. But on the MP3 player, I think it probably was Riff Raff or Sin City that was on it. And I always liked that one.
Okay. Cool.
But just like coming back into this album for like the last 4 years or so, there's just a lot of odd parts. You can see where the band's going, but they're not quite. I can talk more in depth about it later, but this one's just always stuck out to me. It's just like a really special album and kind of like a well-kept secret. They don't play any of these songs live,
really,
from what I can tell. Maybe they do every now and again. But
I mean, I saw it looked like the only like official single off of it was Rock and Roll Damnation, which sort of, you know, adds to their catalog of. I mean, they have so many songs that are just have the word rock in the title too.
Absolutely.
Like,
actually, their live album though, that If You Want Blood, You've Got It, is like there's like I think 4 songs are from this record, and that's their best live, and like arguably their best live record. It's pretty magical,
and that makes sense because it was the one that came out right after this, right before Highway to Hell. Which I think was the last. It was the last live manifestation of Bon.
Yep.
In the
Highway to Hell was the last Bon record.
Do you have opinions about Bon versus Brian? Like, do you have an allegiance?
I love obviously both. Brian's the man, but Bon is like he's the heart and soul of the band for sure.
Yeah, I think there's clarity with which the way in the way he sings, like you really, and that humor that you're talking about, Bon might be funnier than Brian is, in my opinion.
For sure, Brian's kind of like he's got a real working class appeal. He's got the ripped off sleeves of his jean jacket, and he wears the dumb hat.
It's dumb. But, it's such a dumb hat.
But he's like, obviously, he's like the man. He's like he's great. But his voice is like, it's just kind of like a strong blues voice, whereas Bon, I feel like, is kind of like mischief personified.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of flamboyant in a way too. And he's just very like cartoony, which I feel, you know, works with the band's visuals and kind of attitude.
Yeah.
It aligns a little better, but you know, I have no qualms with Brian. He's great, but Bon is the man for sure.
Yeah, I thought so too. I always liked High Voltage. Like when I was going through my phase, I think the High Voltage record was that was the one that I always thought was underrated. I was like, you guys gotta listen to High Voltage.
Honestly, it could have been any of those first like 6 records for the one that I crank up all the way. But this one is just sort of. I definitely wanted to talk about this one the most.
Michael, did you have a AC/DC phase?
I think I've always just perpetually been into AC/DC because I mean, for me, if an alien were to come down from outer space and ask us like, what is rock and roll? I would be like AC/DC because like, it just feels like it's the most definitive version of that. Like, I mean, it's got like, there's riffs, there's sort of like sludgy guitars at times. Like, it's just, you know, I wish I could come up with a better. And
it's dumb. There's gotta be a level of dumbness to rock and roll, at least like from a pure rock and roll standpoint, there has to be.
Well, and you talk about like the visuals too. I mean, for me, the main visual I think of with AC/DC is Angus playing the guitar and the way that he plays the guitar. Like, I mean, just
It's
like
amazing.
whatever it is with the guitar, arguably, like I know we said it's pub rock, but like I mean, come on, it's also like kind of cock rock, right? He's got like the guitar. It's just I just
there's a lot of attitude.
Yeah. And like I remember like when I was little, like I think seeing, I don't know if it was the video for You Shook Me All Night Long probably or something, was played on MTV, and just like seeing the way he played, it just felt like, yeah, there's no like crazy special effects for their live shows. They didn't need it because they themselves were just generating all the electricity to keep the metaphor going.
100%. Yeah.
I like this bit about Brian being more working class than Bon as well. I think because that kind of speaks to where they go from here, right? Like they don't quite have that kind of flamboyance once Brian joins the band. Of course they still have, they're still big, they're still grand in terms of the way that they play. But Bon had almost more of a Bowie kind of energy, like a little more theatrical, and Brian's almost a little bit more like Bruce Springsteen, like he did some more of that.
He even looks like him back in the day, like those early clips. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this idea of hard rock that keeps coming up when you like read about AC/DC. And I feel like if they're sort of like, it feels like they sort of bridged a gap between eras in some ways. Like they were doing a little bit, like they kind of bridging stuff from Zeppelin into the like Van Halen of the 80s, maybe.
Totally.
Do you have an idea of kind of like what is it about their sound that allowed a bridge like that to happen in your mind?
I kind of blame, or I shouldn't say blame. I don't think it's like all for a negative thing, but what's his? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He produced Highway to Hell.
Mutt Lange.
Yep, Mutt. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I feel like once Mutt did Highway to Hell and Back in Black, they kind of like took on like they kind of lost a lot of the rawness that was on those first few Bon records. It even kind of goes away with Highway to Hell, even though Bon's on it. It's just like, and it's not all for bad. I think it definitely made for better like radio kind of songs and stuff like that. But All Gone were like the really like gnarly guitar solos that were kind of like on this album, like the solo and riff raff is just like a lot of it's noise. It's just like just pure raw energy. But you can like sing all the guitar solos in Back in Black. Like they're very like melodic and kind of like planned out, it sounds like. So I don't think that was never not part of the band's DNA. I think they always like could make a song that was like very universal, but I think Mutt kind of showed them the way. And then they obviously, saw the success that they had. And then they just kind of kept on that trajectory.
Maybe it's almost more metal, and it goes in a more of a metal direction. Like you can't sing the guitar part in Thunderstruck. Like that's just the arena rock song. You just got to say thunder. Yeah, exactly.
But how do you feel about all like conversations around genre, Mike? I mean, I was reading like some interviews you'd done for Liquid Mike, and like, I don't know, like as someone who is, part of a band, when people start talking about like, are you power pop? Are you heavy metal? Or like, what are you like? Do you, as a musician, do you welcome that conversation? Or are you kind of like, I just want to make music?
People tell me all the time what they think that we sound like, and I just like take it as it is. It's like, who am I to tell them that they're wrong?
Sure.
If I were going to just describe our band, I'd say it's just a rock band. Maybe like I don't dislike power pop as a title. I don't think that's like the worst descriptor for our band in the world, but definitely when you like listen to a lot of power pop, it's definitely more kind of like lighthearted or something, or maybe just like kind of more twee in a way. And I think that we're like a lot more of just like a straight up rock band a lot of the time. Like I love to riff out. I like to turn the distortion pedal on and like, and just groove and like kind of be blissed out. And I think I've said this, I love all that power pop stuff, like the Teenage Fan Club and like bands like that. But like bands like AC/DC kind of give me the same feeling too. Right. Like when Teenage Fan Club just kind of like plays like a pretty chord over and over and over, it's like gives me the same feeling that AC/DC does in like Rock and Roll Damnation, where you're just grooving like forever for like the last 2 minutes of the song. So
yeah,
I don't really care what people, whatever people want to call me, I don't get hung up on it, even if I completely disagree.
That seems healthy.
Mike. I would never correct someone for thinking something, I guess.
That's cool. I mean, that kind of tracks based on like you're writing the album and then you're sending it off into the world, and then that it kind of hits people the way that it does. So that perspective makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Did you play like were you ever playing like blues, like straight up blues music when you were younger, like when you were first learning how to play?
I think when I was first learning, it's kind of like, it's probably like common for a lot of people my age, it's just riffs. You just want to learn like the main riff of like of songs and stuff. But I never got too into like just straight up blues music like Stevie Ray Vaughan or anything like that. It never really spoke to me too much. But I mean, I do like blues music, but it wasn't like a formative type of thing. Sure. Obviously, AC/DC has blues roots.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of. I think this is also, if we're talking about like their trajectory of this band, it feels like this is the last part where you really see that sort of bluesy. You know how when you listen to those early Zeppelin records, like they're just blues records basically in some ways. And so, like this to me is the turning point with AC/DC, where it stops really embodying that blues spirit and then moves into the arena rock realm. So I found that notable about this one in particular.
Totally. Yeah, and this is the last one that George Young and Harry Varda, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. And they had done like all the records leading up to it.
Yeah.
So it was always in-house production because that was their older brother or whatever. And I feel like this is like their like crowning achievement as producers of those records. Obviously, the records before it sound awesome. Like Let There Be Rock is like such a raw record, but it's super harsh sounding. If you like kind of go back and listen to it, it's like super rough around the edges, which makes it cool. Like it fits the band or whatever. But I feel like this was as kind of clean and kind of streamlined that they could get like in-house with their older brother producing it and stuff.
It's tight. It's definitely tight.
Super tight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like very boogie. I mean, they've always been kind of like a boogie band. Like these are records you can just dance to straight up.
Yeah.
Really, like they're so fun.
That's the weird thing. Like I remember, like I said before, You Shook Me All Night Long. I remember that from being a kid. Like that's a very danceable. Like, you could play that at a wedding.
Yeah.
Like people could dance.
They'll
to
lose their minds.
You should
exactly. Yes.
You should play that at a wedding. Okay, Mike, we've delved our way into the album itself, so I think this is a good moment for us to let the people know what you see as the standout track from the album. What would you say?
If it's not Riff Raff, it's Rock and Roll Damnation, but I'm going to give it to Riff Raff for sure.
Okay, cool.
Killer riff. Bon is screaming his lungs out, and he doesn't even sing for like 3 minutes in the middle of the song. It's just like the longest, most crazy guitar solo.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, let's give the listeners a little listen, and then we'll talk just a bit more about it on the other end. Here you go, people. Here's Riff Raff from AC/DC's Powerage.